everyone, so we're on to the Diary of Samuel Pepys, and it's now the 4th of September, so this is day 2 of the fire. So 4th of September 1666. Up by break of day to get away the remainder of my things, which I did by a lighter at the iron gate, and my hands so few that it was the afternoon before we could get them all away. Sir W. Penn and I to Tower Street, and there met the fire burning 3 or 4 doors beyond Mr. Howell's, whose goods, poor man, his trays and dishes, shovels, etc., were flung all along Tower Street in the kennels, and people working therewith from one end to the other, the fire coming on in that narrow street on both sides with infinite fury. Sir W. Batten, not knowing how to remove his wine, did dig a pit in the garden and lay it in there, and I took the opportunity of laying all the papers of my office that I could not otherwise dispose of. And in the evening Sir W. Penn and I did dig another, and put our wine in it, and I my Parmesan cheese, as well as my wine and other things. The Duke of York was at the office this day, and Sir W. Penn's, but I happened not to be within. This afternoon, sitting melancholy, that means sadness, with Sir W. Penn in our garden, and thinking of the certain burning of this office with extraordinary means, I did propose for the sending up of all of our workmen from Woolwich and Deptford yards, none whereof yet appeared, and to write to Sir W. Coventry to have the Duke of York's permission to pull down houses rather than lose this office, which would much hinder the King's business. So Sir W. Penn, he went down this night in order to the sending them up tomorrow morning, and I wrote to Sir W. Coventry about the business, but received no answer. This night Mrs. Turner, who, poor woman, was removing her goods all this day, good goods, into the garden, and knows not how to dispose of them, and her husband supped with my wife and I at night in the office, upon a shoulder of mutton from the cook's, without any napkin or anything, in a sad manner, but were merry. Only now and then walking into the garden, and saw how horridly the sky looks, all on a fire in the night, was enough to put us out of our wits, and indeed it was extremely dreadful, for it looks just as if it was at us, and the whole heaven on fire. I, after supper, walked in the dark down to Tower Street, and there saw it all on fire, at the Trinity House on that side, and the Dolphin Tavern on this side, which was very near us, and the fire was with extraordinary vehemence. That means anger. Now begins the practice of blowing up of houses in Tower Street, those next to the tower, which at first had frightened people more than anything, but it stopped the fire where it was done, it bringing down the houses to the ground in the same place as they stood, and then it was easy to quench what little fire was in it, though it kindled nothing almost. W. Newer this day went to see how his mother did, and comes late home, telling us how he hath been forced to remove her to Islington, her house in Pye Corner being burned, so that the fire is got so far that way, and all the Old Bailey, and was running down to Fleet Street, and Paul's, remember that is St. Paul's, is burned, and all Cheapside. I wrote to my father this night, and the post house being burned, the letter could not go. So there's a letter that he's written. So there's a copy of a letter that he's written in his diary, that he's put in his diary to preserve, and it says, "Sir, the fire is now very near us as well on Tower Street as Fenchurch Street side, and we little hope of our escape, but we this remedy to ye, whereof we do certainly owe ye loss of ye city, namely, ye pulling down of houses in ye way of ye fire. This way Sir W. Penn and myself have so far concluded upon ye practising, that he is gone to Woolwich and Deptford to supply himself with men and necessaries in order to the doing thereof. In case of at his return our condition be not bettered, and that he meets with his Right Honourables, RHS, Right Honourables, approbation, which is approval, which I had thus undertaken to learn of you. Pray please to let me have this night, at whatever hour it is, what his Right Honourable's directions are in this particular. Sir J. Minns and Sir W. Batten having left us, we cannot add, though we are well assured of their, as well as all ye neighbourhood's concurrence." Is that SP? So that's Samuel Pepys. So he's basically saying there that Sir J. Minns and Sir W. Batten have already left the city, but they've already agreed that they should be pulling down the houses, and he's asking to have the Duke of York's permission by the end of the night, that night, to pull down the houses to create a fire break. And then the letter that he wrote to his father was, Sir Philip Froude and his lady fled from, and then there's a blank, office at midnight for safety, stayed himself till 1 a.m, till his wife and children's patience could stay no longer, fearing lest they should be quite stopped up. The passage was so tedious, they had much ado to get where they are. The Chester and Irish mails have come in. Sends him his letters, knows not how to dispose of the business. So that just that means that they didn't know what to do. So the 5th of September. I lay down in the office again upon W. Hewer's quilt, being mighty weary and sore in my feet with going till I was hardly able to stand. At about 2 in the morning my wife calls me up and tells me of new cries of fire, it being come to Barking Church, which is in the bottom of our lane. I up, and finding it so, resolved presently to take her away, and did, and took my gold, which was about L2350, West Newer and Jane, down by Proundy's boat to Woolwich. But Lord, what sad sight it was by moonlight to see, the whole city almost on fire, that you might see it plain at Woolwich, as if you were by it. There, when I come, I find the gates shut, but no guard kept at all, which troubled me, because of discourse now begun, that there is a plot in it, and that the French had done it. I got the gates open, and to Mr. Sheldon's, where I locked up my gold, and charged my wife, and W. Newer never to leave the room without one of them in it, night or day. So back again by the way, seeing my goods well in the light as at Deptford, and watched well by people. Home, and whereas I expected to have seen our house on fire, it being now about 7 o'clock, it was not, but to the fire, and there find greater hopes than I expected, for my confidence of finding our office on fire was such that I durst not ask anybody how it was with us, till I come and saw it not burned. But going to the fire, I find by the blowing up of houses, and the great help given by the workmen out of the King's yards, sent up by Sir W. Penn, there was a good stop given to it, as well as at Mark Lane end as ours, it having only burned the dial of Barking Church and part of the porch, and was there quenched. I up to the top of Barking steeple, and there saw the saddest sight of desolation that ever I saw. Everywhere great fires, oil cellars and brimstone, and other things burning. I became afeard to stay there long, and therefore down again as fast as I could, the fire being spread as far as I could see it, and to Sir W. Penn's, and there eat a piece of cold meat, having eaten nothing since Sunday but the remains of Sunday dinners. Here I met with Mr. Young and Whistler, and having removed all my things and received good hopes that the fire at our end is stopped, they and I walked into the town, and find Fanchurch Street, Gracious Street, and Lombard Street all in dust. The Exchange a sad sight, nothing standing there, of all the statues or pillars but Sir Thomas Gresham's picture in the corner. Walked into Moorfields, our feet ready to burn, walking through the town among the hot coals, and find that full of people, and poor wretches carrying their goods there, and everybody keeping his goods together by themselves. And a great blessing it is to them that it is fair weather for them to keep abroad night and day. So clearly it's still sunny through the day and dry, and there isn't any rain. We drank there, and paid 2 pence for a plain penny loaf. Thence homeward, having passed through Cheapside and Newgate Market, all burned, and seen Anthony Joyce's house in fire, and out of a hole in the chimney joining to the wall of the Exchange, with the hair all burned off the body and yet alive. So home at night, and find there good hopes of saving our office, but great endeavours of watching all night and having men ready. And so we lodged them in the office, and had drink and bread and cheese for them. And I lay down and slept a good night about midnight, though when I rose I heard that there had been a great alarm of French and Dutch being risen, which proved nothing. But it is a strange thing to see how long this time did look since Sunday, having been always full of variety of actions and little sleep, that it looked like a week or more, and I had forgot almost the day of the week. Then there's the 6th, so we'll just do the 6th because it's not very long, the entry on the 6th. So the 6th of September, up about 5 o'clock in the morning, and where I met Mr. Gordon at the gate of the office. I intending to go out, as I used, every now and then today, to see how the fire is, to call our men to Bishopsgate, where no fire had yet been near. And there is now one broke out, which did give great grounds to people, and to me too, to think that there is some kind of plot in this, on which many this time has been taken, and it hath been dangerous for any stranger to walk in the streets. But I went with the men, and we did put it out in a little time, so that was well again. It was pretty to see how hard the women did work in the canals, sweeping of water, but then they would scold for drink, and be as drunk as devils. I saw good butts of sugar broke open in the street, and people go and take handfuls out and put it into beer and drink it. But now, all being pretty well, I took boat and over to Southwark, and took boat on the other side of the bridge, and so to Westminster, thinking to shift myself, being all in dirt from top to bottom, but could not find any place to buy a shirt or pair of gloves. Westminster Hall being full of people's goods, those in Westminster having removed all their goods, and the exchequer money put into vessels to carry to none such. But to the Swan, and there was trimmed, and then to Whitehall. So where he's got there, and there was trimmed, that means he got dressed, he bought new clothes. And then to Whitehall, but saw nobody, and so home. A sad sight to see how the river looks, no houses nor church near it, to the temple where it stopped. At home did go with Sir W. Batten and our neighbour Knightley, who, with one more, was the only man of any fashion left in all the neighbourhood thereabouts, they all removing their goods and leaving their houses to the mercy of the fire. To Sir R. Ford's, and then dined in an earthen platter, a friend breast of mutton, a great many of us, but very merry, and indeed as good a meal, though as ugly a one as ever I had in my life. Thence down to Deptford, and there with great satisfaction landed all my goods at Sir G. Carteret's safe, and nothing missed I could see or heard. This being done to my great content, I home, and to Sir W. Batten's, and then with Sir R. Ford, Mr. Knightley, and one Withers, a professed lying rogue, supped well and mighty merry, and our fears over. From then to the office, and there slept with the office full of labourers, who talked and slept, and walked all night long. But strange it was to see Clothworkers' Hall on fire, these 3 days and nights in one body of flame, it being the cellar full of oil. And then there's a little note in here from the Calendar of State Papers, which says, the terrible disaster which overtook London was borne by the inhabitants of the city with great fortitude. That just means that they took it really well, and they were very resilient. But foreigners and Roman Catholics had a bad time. As no cause for the outbreak of the fire could be traced, a general cry was raised that it owed its origin to a plot. That means that they thought that somebody had started the fire deliberately. In a letter from Thomas Wade to Williamson, we read, the destruction of London by fire is reported to be a hellish contrivance, that means a plot, of the French, Hollanders, that's people from Holland, so the Dutch, and fanatic party. And we're going to leave it there. So we're going to catch up with this tomorrow. Samuel Pepys' diary on the 7th of September. One thing I noted, and I don't know whether you did before I stop this, is on the 6th, when I was reading that, he said that he hadn't eaten. He hadn't eaten anything since this fire started. But actually he had, because the day before he says he sits down to a shoulder of mutton, which is like a roast dinner of mutton is a cheap cut of lamb. It's old lamb, well, it's sheep basically. So he's told a fib there. He hasn't told the truth, has he? He said that he hasn't eaten anything, but he has. He had a big meal the night before. So that's not a truth that he's told in his diary. Just that I just noticed when I was reading that to you. So I wonder what else we'll find that is written down that isn't quite true as we're reading this. So anyway, have a lovely day. I will speak to you all tomorrow. Bye-bye.